All right, let's just start with last night. The president of the United States makes this comment, as I said at the beginning. A comedian garners 3 hours of news. The president of the United States calls 75 million people garbage. No one does anything. And then check this out. I was all of a sudden, I got lit up last night. Dude, are you watching this? And I was like, what? And sure enough, here it comes. Trump shows up in a garbage truck wearing a thing, and the garbage truck says Trump on it. And there he is.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
It's like Toby Keith. How do you like me now, Chris Stigall? I felt like, dude, the thing that I love about Trump is, right, he's still sitting there in the tie and the press shirt, and he gets, like, he's so comfortable being like, hey, I'll hop into a garbage truck.
That's what I said today on the show. How does he get away with it when a guy as you're dressed as Tim Walsh doesn't? And I was thinking about this a lot, and it is that. I think it's that he keeps the starched white shirt with the cufflinks and the tie at all times. He never breaks his own character, which is not his character. It's his real self. But he puts on an apron and it works. He puts on a vest and it works. He's never a phony. He's not faking Trump in any setting he's in. And he really genuinely, as you well know better than anybody, loves people. Right. He loves to hang out with garbage truck guys or people at McDonald's. And it just looks natural because he genuinely likes people, Sean.
Reagan, did the heads just blow for your fellow correspondents there in the White House? I mean, I got to imagine they knew it was brilliant and they hated it.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. And to Chris's point, Trump is so authentic. He's never, he embraces kind of that he is this rich man, but he is so good at having that blue collar heart and catering to the people. I think that this is so problematic because President Biden still hasn't even faced the public, faced questions on this. He had a bilateral yesterday. It was a quick 5 minutes in and out, took no questions. And then today, nothing on his public schedule.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
And meanwhile, the Trump campaign is just capitalizing on this. And it just, what a way to pierce the momentum that Harris had at that closing arguments. I thought the vibes were really high. I actually thought it was going to give her kind of momentum going into this final week. And meanwhile, just 1,000 feet away, Joe Biden is making sure that it's all ruined for Kamala Harris.
But this gets back to what Jessica said at the beginning, right? Talk about happening at the perfect time. Now, there's going to be a ton of people tonight that we see dressed up as Trump supporters, wearing trash bags and keeping the meme going. But Jessica, I want to play for you what sort of message guru Frank Luntz said on CNN, because this goes back to what Reagan was saying, that this isn't a comedian and they're trying to make something on it. Take a listen to what Frank had to say on CNN.
But I wonder if you think that those comments are going to move voters.
It's going to be huge, because this is not some comedian saying something stupid and offensive at a rally where he should have been basically disinvited. This is the president of the United States endorsing his vice president saying something. And I know that there's different interpretations about what he said. It's still inappropriate. You still shouldn't be doing it. And I've watched Trump already seize this. The basket of deplorables was significant, was meaningful in 2016. In 2024, I can promise you that this is going to drive Trump turnout. He's doing it already.
Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Frank. I think that this is Biden's garbage and Kamala's to clean up, right? This is a classic example where the president isn't on the campaign trail. He's not at the closing argument for Kamala. He wasn't even invited. He's unable to stay on script or on message. He doesn't face press. And this is why, because when he talks, this is what he says. He doesn't like the American people. He's antagonistic to over half of the country that's voted for Trump. He is not a unity candidate. And so I don't think we should be surprised that he said it. We should be surprised that he said it on camera. He probably talks like this about all of us behind the scenes anyway. And now we got a glimpse of it. And now we know. And, Sean, we all grew up in I know probably, similar households where our parents told us, you are known by what you say, right? You are known by what you say. That's your integrity. The Democrats tell us what they think of us every single day. You can parade unity and have those stickers, but it's meaningless if you don't have the leader of the free world actually embracing all Americans and President Trump said it great yesterday. I loved it. I loved the garbage truck stunt. I thought that was good publicity, but I loved what he said. And that, I think, is worth us all remembering why we're excited to vote for President Trump. He said you can't lead America if you don't love America. And that's the difference. Like, that's the difference.
You know, Chris, one, I think that what Jessica said is so, like, he ran in 2016 because he said he was running because of Charlottesville and he hated Donald Trump and he was running for re-election. This is not, like, this is what he thinks. That's number one. But let me just ask you guys to weigh in on this. There are a lot of people who are saying this was intentional. He is trying to tank her because he doesn't want her to win. He doesn't want to be, he wants to show, see, I could have done this. No one else could. Is this Joe just expressing himself, what he really feels, slip of the tongue, lack of mental acuity, or is he really trying to tank her?
I say it could be both. I'm perfectly comfortable that it's plausible that it's both. I think Jessica's 100% right. This is really the way they feel about us. You know, it's funny, Sean, that I, to the month, 8 years ago, it was my last appearance on CNN with Don Lemon. And it was on the very night, and I'm not making this up, the very night Mrs. Clinton dropped deplorables on all of us. And that night, Don Lemon wanted to talk to me about Donald Trump's taxes. And I said, Don, Mrs. Clinton just called half this country and Donald Trump's voters deplorable. That's the issue. He threw me off the show and I was never welcomed back. It's amazing that 8 years later, almost to the darn day, here's Joe Biden saying the same thing. Jessica's 100% right. This is how they feel about us. And when they see that Trump is not only competitive, but perhaps winning again, they don't understand it. Mrs. Clinton shouts in frustration, why am I not 50 points ahead, you might ask? You know, they're hysterical and they're angry, and it just bubbles over after a while, and it did in Biden the other day.
Reagan, I mean,
Yeah.
I look at this and I'm saying to myself, do these guys want her to win? Because I get the sense that this is, like, he put out a statement today about let's ban guns. And I was like, are you literally trying to screw her? Because I feel like they're going out of their way. The other day they held a press conference on the same day that she was speaking. They do this. I'm mixed. I'm with Chris on this. I feel like both things can be true at the same time. He can make a massive gaffe and he can kind of want to screw her over.
Yeah, so on the gaffe part, I do think it was a gaffe. I think Karine Jean-Pierre wouldn't commit to saying whether he was reading off a script or not. And I think if he was reading off a script, this is, that's such an easy thing to admit and just say, yeah, he messed up. This is a gaffe. But we know that they've protected his mental state for so long. But on the point of trying to sabotage the vice president, there's been, great reporting from Alex Thompson in Axios about the tension between Biden and Harris aides, knowing that Biden aides might get fired if Harris is elected, and that can be playing into all of this. But even more so, what is so sad, and I think should be considered when we're talking about the president going into the briefing room at the same time of a Harris rally, when the president was asked if Ron DeSantis should take Kamala Harris's phone calls, and he just said, Ron DeSantis has been awesome, and says nothing about about Harris. Harris wants nothing to do with Biden on the campaign trail. Axios reported that basically what Kamala Harris is saying to Joe Biden is, I'll get back to you. And then she never gets back to you. It's like, it's really sad and pathetic. And so then the president is going and scheduling his own campaign events and campaigning solo. And the Harris campaign is, taken aback by the fact that he's doing this. So I definitely think there's merit to thinking that Biden is trying to, pull his own stunts and kind of stab Harris in the back one way or another.
Jessica, Kamala has this big event on the mall, and the White House is the backdrop, right? And I kept thinking that Joe is walking through they call it the cross hall there. Like, what's going on the mall? Why are all the lights out there? And Jill's like, come on, Joe, it's time for dinner. Like, how embarrassing. They made a big deal when Republicans had the convention. Mitt Romney's not here. What does that say about the convention? And I'm like, dude, he's right behind you. He's in the window and you didn't ask him to come down. He's the current president of the United States. Like, that's embarrassing.
I think it's all you need to know about the tension and of their relationship right now. This is her closing argument. This is her last chance to put the policies of why she's going to be different than what she was the last 3.5 years in front of the American people. And she doesn't invite the sitting president of the United States, her partner, the person she was on the ticket 3.5 years ago with. To me, that was the most damning moment of any of the reporting of these tensions. Obviously, staff on staff fighting, it always happens. It's a natural occurrence. But the fact that he wasn't even invited, and it's not like he was in another state. Like maybe it would have been less obvious if he was in like Michigan or Pennsylvania, like campaigning, like, oh, he's on the trail tonight. He was up the street. Like he was right there. He was holding counter programming. I mean, not good.
By the way, you know what I said this morning on someone else's show? I was like, had he been invited, he wouldn't have made the gaffe. He wouldn't have been doing the Zoom call. Chris Stigall, speaking of gaffe, the media, when the comedian said what he did 4 hours before Trump, which, let's face it, was a bad joke that didn't go over well, right? It was, is Trump going to apologize? Has everyone gone to confession? Did you guys ask for absolution from the Pope? And then when Joe Biden says this, George Stephanopoulos and everyone else is like, the Biden administration made a gaffe. Will it step on your message? Norah O'Donnell last night on CBS News said Republicans refused to show any grace on this. And I'm like, what? Like, they are all like, oh, it's Joe. He didn't mean it. Here's what he meant. And you should show him grace and deference. And I'm like, so a comedian 4 hours before Trump, all of us need to just write an essay. I will not do that again. I will not invite a comedian. I will not invite, like Bart Simpson at the beginning, right? And then here we go with the current president of the United States. Because no, you guys are missing this. It's a gaffe. It was out of context. Hey, it's Joe. No joke. Just kidding.
I wrote a column years ago, Sean, about Donald Trump's ability to get out of anything. It reminds me of the old Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote cartoons. The press or Democrats continue to think they've set the ultimate trap for Trump. And like the Roadrunner, every time he comes along, he eats the bird seed and, darts out of the shot, and then it blows up in the coyote's face. It's every single time they think they've got him cornered, up to and including shooting him. They can't take the guy down. They can't take him out. They can't lock him up. They can't break him. And they try and they try and they can't. It must be infuriating. I will give you one more local hint by way of Pennsylvania as to what I think's going on. You tell me if you think you agree with this one, Sean. There's a guy who fancies himself the next star of the Democrat Party. He's the governor of Pennsylvania. His name's Josh Shapiro. And old Josh went out on CNN yesterday, and when he was asked about this remark from Biden, couldn't run from it fast enough and said, I'm paraphrasing, I myself would never call Pennsylvanians who don't share my vote and vote for someone else garbage. I personally, I'm shocked. I would never. That tells me that's the official signal Donald Trump's about to win Pennsylvania, and he wants to be the next party standard bearer. And so it's time to separate officially himself from Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And I would say, by the way, Barack Obama. I think this signifies perhaps the end of the Obama era if she should lose on Tuesday. And I think Josh Shapiro's counting on it.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to what I was talking to you about a moment ago. I think that they're like, this was not how it was supposed to go. Shapiro, Newsom, Whitmer, they were supposed to fight it out, right? And they're like, she jumped the queue, so we're going to figure out ways to just jabber and shiver politically and that, to me, you're right. I saw that yesterday. That dude was like, is there any cameras that would like to hear what I have to say about this? Because they hadn't even commented yet. And they were like, he's like, no, I'll tell you. And I'm going to spill all the tea. All right, ladies, I want to play for you a new ad. And I'm going to play it. And then Reagan, you go first. And Jessica, I don't want to comment on it at all. I want to play this ad that the Harris campaign put out featuring Julia Roberts. And I just want you to just tell us what you think of the ad. Because we, the men, will sit back and this is clearly targeted at. Oh, no, but I'm serious. I just want you guys to give us your raw impression. Yeah. All right, let's play the ad, and then Reagan, you go first, Jessica, and just tell us what you think it means.
Your turn, honey.
In the one place in America where women still have a right to choose, you can vote any way you want. And no one will ever know.
Did you make the right choice?
Sure did, honey.
Remember, what happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Walls. Vote Common Good is responsible for the contents of this ad.
First of all, that hat is tacky. That is my first. No, seriously, it's like that's. I'm old enough to know that is not in style. This ad, it's like hard not to get like emotional about this ad, because I think what it really just is telling women is that the Democratic Party loves you more than the men in your life. And that is what one of our columnists wrote in her newsletter this morning. They're trying to tell women that the DNC loves you more than your father, than your husband, than your brother, who is there to protect you and provide for you, and that you should go behind their back and you should betray them and lie to them. And I think it's obviously on brand with what the Democrats try to push, but it is just, it really displays to you how much the Democrats hate just the nuclear family and everything I think that the GOP stands for.
So I actually hadn't seen this ad until right now. And my thought of the hat was, yes, it was tacky, but that hat is supposed to be us, right? Like that's supposed to be the garbage that's voting. My takeaway from the ad, and I want to watch it again, but my sense is that it's not even that they hate women, they hate men, and they want women to lie to their husbands and deceive them. And it's okay. It should be celebrated. The wife should not feel in partnership with her husband, but instead have a solidarity with a sisterhood. And I think it makes a mockery out of marriage, and I think it makes a mockery out of men. And it's sad that they're at this point, but it's also reflective, I think, of where some of our culture is, that there's no value on the nuclear family, and it's a pun. And Julia Roberts, America's sweetheart from Hollywood, being the voiceover is even more, I think, reflective of just how nasty this is towards men and women, and specifically husband and wife, which is sad.
May I also offer just that I don't speak for you ladies, obviously. I would speak for my wife and say that the notion that there are women in this country afraid of their husbands, and that their husbands expect them to vote a certain way. The messaging to me is the only reason any woman in this country would ever vote for a Republican is because the man in her life is threatening her to do so. And this is a reminder from the Democrat Party, you don't have to be afraid of the men in your life. Just vote the way you really want to. We know the real story. It's so insulting.
It's insulting, but this is the key difference, I think, between where the Democratic Party is today. They see Americans the way they want to be, the way they want to see them, not the way we actually are. They can't even fathom a healthy marriage of a husband and wife that hash it out, that argue about the issues, that talk about the debates and, how much groceries cost and kids' education and how we're raising our kids and church. They can't even imagine a healthy unit that speaks their mind. And so what if they make a difference if it's a house divided of who votes for one or the other? That doesn't need to equate deceit. That doesn't need to mean deceit between a spouse. And
or that if you share a point of view, you don't share a brain. I mean, you can vote like your husband, ladies, and still be an independent woman. That's also something to me, like you're a robot or something if you share your husband's point of view.
And different reasons, right? You could get to the same conclusion about Trump, but you get there a different way, which is the case in my marriage. We both get to Trump, but in different ways for different reasons. And that's okay. And it's okay to talk about it. I just think this just goes back to the left has a fundamentally fractured point of view of marriage, of the family, because they can't fathom that we're normal and that they're actually the weird ones because they can't have a marriage that stands diversity of thought.
Yeah, I was on News Nation this morning with Marky Martin, and she said, kind of a combination of what the two of you are saying. She said, as a woman, I'm insulted, like as if I have to look to my husband to decide who I'm going to vote for, ask for permission. I also thought as a man, that's insulting to think that somehow I tell my wife how to vote. She would look at me and say, shut up, right? But I mean, like, do we talk about politics? Yeah. I mean, to your point, Jessica, do we have but we've disagreed before. That's healthy. And this idea that, your husband will tell you, I mean, for all the talk about taking people back and turning a page, this ad was when you walk into the voting booth and your husband has driven you there, and then you get permission to go on your own and hidden. Like, I was like, this is so insulting. For you guys to pretend that's a horrible stereotype of how marriages are, how men and women interact. Anyway, I'm thank you guys for weighing in.
Could I just throw in while we're on this, though? Barack Obama telling the brothers they'd better get their minds right as well. Yeah. This party continues to speak to people like they're toddlers under their control. I know,
and the double standard in the media, though, if we talk to our voters that way, actually, when President Trump says, if you're Jewish and you don't see what these guys are doing to Israel, then blah, blah, blah. They go, oh my God, how insulting. When Barack Obama tells black men if they don't do something, it's like, hey, that makes sense. When they run an ad like that saying that this is how a marriage should be, this is how America is with men and women, like, no one has a problem with that. And by the way, this is a perfect segue into this hit piece that CNN did, right? Like, I'm very proud of independent media. I'm proud of our sponsors. I tell everyone I use every one of them proudly because I love the people, the products, and the companies that have supported this show and others. And CNN did this hit piece. I want to show you guys this. This is unbelievable, on MAGA media last night. Before I do that, I want to tell you how I sleep every night.
But MAGA media isn't all doom and gloom. There's also a lot of stuff you can buy.
But I've got my Beam Dream powder. Now,
it is kind of sad. You see Sean Spicer once, the White House press secretary.
All right, so look, let me just segue into it since they brought it up. I'm proud of Beam Dream Powder. I sleep better because of Beam Dream Powder. And if you go to shopbeam.com/Spicer, use my promo code Spicer, you can get 40% off any of the beautiful flavors. Cinnamon coconut, brownie. There's a reason millions of people take this stuff, because it works. It's great. It's all natural. Magnesium, melatonin, reishi, whatever. And if you go to shopbeam.com/Spicer, you get 40% off using code word Spicer. That's my soapbox on this. It works. I'm proud of them. And I'm proud of the fact that because of them, we've created independent media. CNN is failing. Okay. They're failing as a network. Their viewership is going down. They're cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting because it's not working. And I'm proud that this show is growing and growing and growing because of sponsors like Beam. So there, I'm on my soapbox, but I'll just say, if you want to join me, and I take it, I love it. I think I sleep better. I tell you guys all the time, when I miss it once in a while, I can tell. Shopbeam.com/Spicer for 40% off. But guys, I just, it's amazing how bad these guys are going to be. Chris, I before I get into actual elections and actual races, what is going on in Pennsylvania? This local DA is forcing Elon Musk to show up today in a civil matter, which is not normal, because he says that they're potentially violating your lottery rules there in Pennsylvania, because he's been giving away $1 million if you sign a petition supporting the Constitution.
Yeah, Larry Krasner wants in on the fun. I mean, Letitia James and Fannie Willis and Alvin Bragg, they've been having all the fun. And poor Larry, who's another Soros hitman, he's really not gotten his due this election cycle. So he's decided to enter the fray and rope Elon to Philadelphia. Yeah, to take him on for giving away $1 million. It's funny, today he's in the Philadelphia Inquirer crying that he's very frightened. He's been getting harassed and very mean emails and tweets because Elon fans are being mean to him, and he needs extra security, don't you know, because he's being so harassed for just trying to stand up and enforce the law. No, Larry Krasner's a goon. There is no legal standing here to challenge Elon Musk. As you say, it's a random drawing to give away $1 million, and Elon is certainly entitled to do that. There's no proof of how you registered or how you voted, just that you signed a petition and proved that you're registered. That's it. It's not illegal. This is just Larry.
But they're making him show up. That's the thing. I mean, this is maybe it's not the biggest, but this is election interference. Elon's on the trail making the case for Donald Trump. They're making him go to Philadelphia to show up in a courtroom, which is not what you do in a civil proceeding. Your lawyer normally shows up. They're doing this to take him off the trail for a day.
This is what they did to Trump, right? Most of this year in other courts. I mean, this is classic, just, you're right, election interference. It's them flexing. Look what we can do. We brought in our trophy buck. Ha, ha, ha. It's not going to work. It's silly, but we all know what it's doing. It's a George Soros flex. That's all it is.
Reagan, Pennsylvania is getting a lot more attention because the RNC and the Trump campaign won a big lawsuit last night against Bucks County that who had tried to interfere with people voting early, shutting it down early. They all make fun of our side for saying, oh, it's all ridiculous, nothing happens. And yet here the courts, which weren't, everyone loves to point to them in the last cycle, here they are saying, yeah, we're going to extend it because you guys tried to keep early voting from, shutting down early voting.
Yeah, well, first, the way the RNC pounced on that and immediately filed the lawsuit is definitely something to take note of and to expect to see more of. I talked to a former official a while back who, worked in the 2020-2022 cycle. And, this source felt that the biggest problem in the elections with calling out a bunch of this BS was that there weren't poll watchers and lawyers kind of on standby, ready to call this stuff out and ready to file these suits. And I think we're already starting to see the benefit of the poll watchers and the lawyers that the RNC has really been harping on and talking about in the last 6 months kind of come into play here. I saw Laura Trump, they did something similar. They called something out in Michigan. There were like 160 duplicate ballots made for Harris. And then there was a Chinese student voting illegally in Michigan. And they're already pouncing on these and tackling it head on, which is a complete reversal from what you saw in 2020, where, the lawsuits were filed too late. And the court said, nope, it's too late. I'm sorry. And so I think that should be heartening for a lot of Americans, like hunters and gun owners, for example, big demographic in Pennsylvania, who are unsure about voting and are low propensity voters because they have a lack of trust in the voting process. And so this whole strategy might actually not only make the elections more fair and safe, but really help the GOP with these specific demographics.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.